Welcome to The Good Ride. I'm James Beastie, and it's not about my pride. It's just about how this Jones Flagship Pro rides. This is new for 2025. It's replacing the Ultra Flagship, and while it has the same shape and camber profile, it is a different ride, and we'll be getting into that shortly. I rode this with Union Atlas and Ride Deadbolts in a wide variety of conditions. I compared this extensively against the Flagship, but also the United Shapes Cadet and the Stranda Descender. They're more comparable to the Flagship, but I will occasionally reference those. When it comes to sizing, this 161 fit me really well. I've ridden the 164 Flagship in the past and owned it. I really like that too. So let's talk snowboard dating app, some things that'll make you want to swipe right. This is incredibly stiff. This is not an Ultra, this is a Pro. This has a very fast base. This has very competent grip in hard snow. This has setback inserts for extra float in powder. This is very forgiving for how stiff it is. Some things that might make you want to swipe left. There isn't a lot of camber in comparison to many of its peers. The spoon nose and tail bleed into the effective edge a little bit. The reference stance is super wide, and so are the setback inserts. So let's talk shape. We've got a tapered directional shape, just like the old Flagship and Ultra Flagship. It's pretty centered on board on groomers near reference stance, and when you set it back, it has a little bit more directional, more setback, slightly surfy feel to it. When it comes to the camber profile, you can see it's a very mellow camber. So is the regular Flagship. If you lay it over, you can see they have that same camber profile on each. Very mellow. Now, if you compare this to, let's say, the United Shapes Cadet, which is a good bit softer, but you can see it has a lot more camber going on from tip to tail. The camber is very between the insert packs. You can see at about the reference stance here, it starts to transition into rocker. This rocker carries up into the nose, and the nose has spoon nose technology that bleeds a little bit into the effective edge, but not too much. In the tail, it ends closer to the float pack, the setback inserts you have here, and then transitions up into early rise to some spoon nose in the tail as well. When it comes to edge hold, you have that disrupted side cut that they always have with Jones boards that grips very well. It's very competent in hard snow, but doesn't grab too much or at all in soft snow. Let's take a look at the Flagship Pro Flex. And this thing is just stiff. There is very little give. This is as hard as I can do it. Oh, whew. You can see there's pretty good pop for how stiff it is. It's got a lively snap to it. If you go down to the tail, there's almost no give. My hands start sliding almost before it flexes. The nose is a little softer, but it's a very stiff nose. There's a little bamboo in the sidewalls to help with pop at the expense of some dampness, but it's pretty damp. In comparison to the regular Flagship, this is still very stiff, and it seems stiffer than previous year's models, but it's a lot less stiff than the Flagship Pro and has a little less pop. It's easier than you would think to butter the Flagship Pro, but it's still a good bit of work just because it's so stiff. And what surprised me is how easy it was to ollie, even though it takes a little bit more work than the regular Flagship. When it comes to uneven snow performance, this is the biggest difference between the Ultra Flagship and the Flagship Pro. I think this can absolutely hammer through chunder. It's much stiffer, it's much more damp than the old Ultra Flagship. I did find that the regular Flagship on same day tests and slightly uneven snow, its softer flex was a little bit more of a smooth ride. This is so stiff that it's a little jarring. I think this board would have been even more damp if they didn't put bamboo inserts in the sidewall here and here. I'm just not personally into that, I'd rather see this all recycled ABS. When it comes to speed, this Flagship Pro can absolutely point it. It has a very shallow side cut, 9.1 meters. It likes to go straight. It's very stiff, very damp. This is just gonna light it up. The Flagship is no slouch. Neither is the Stranded Ascender, and the Cadet isn't bad either, but this is on another level versus most boards you can buy out there that are in production. If you want stiffer and faster, you want to go custom. When it comes to base glide, this has a fast base, it has easy glide. Seems like there's a little more structure this year than past years, which is good for all conditions riding, especially if you're gonna take this out in softer, wetter snow. I also don't feel any of this die cut, so that's really not going to affect the board much, except for if you need to repair it. When it comes to turning, this can initiate a turn really quick. It's very easy edge to edge. Once it's initiated though, this doesn't want to keep turning because this has a 9.1 meter side cut, and that's more straight line friendly than across the groomer circle carve friendly. And when I get this on edge, it surprises me. And I think it's because there's so much early rise and there isn't like a full camber from tip to tail, making you engage all of this side cut. It has an easier across the groomer carve, especially if you compare it against the Jones Free Carver 9000. That feels much more like its side cut radius, where this feels like it's a cheater side cut, which is great for skidding turns in really steep conditions. This can do it much easier. The spring out of the turn wasn't exceptional because this does have a very mellow camber, but it is no slouch when it comes to carving groomers. I set it up two different ways. I set this up as close as I could to reference with a 21.5 inch stance width versus 23.6. So each one was slid in a little more, which I like because I'm engaging that camber better. I found that this likes a little more center weighted to back foot carving better. What I did like better though was using the setback inserts on the front and then finding a 21.5 inch stance width right around here and riding groomers that way. It's definitely a little more directional and it felt a little more surfy, but I felt like I was engaging the camber better on the front foot. With these back inserts, I was over camber instead of in the transition to rocker area. And I liked the way that turned better. If I owned this, I'd probably never center this up on reference. I'd just keep it set back. That was my favorite for this board. When it comes to powder and setting this all the way back with a 22.75 inch stance width, you need full-size discs for this. You can get 4.75 inches back from center of board. Not a lot of people who are riding this 161 are gonna be at a 22.75 inch stance width. Most of them are gonna be like me, 21.5 to 22 that are riding this. So I would love to see them move this back. You'd also get this back over the camber, and I think it would make it a better ride. But as it stands now, this floats really well. I was surprised at how turny and surfy I could get this 9.1 meter side cut to turn in powder. I think it's a combination of all that early rise being a little bit more set back towards the tail and the spoon nose. That just creates such a cool turning experience and makes the board turn easier in powder than you would think. This is a great medium angle to steep angle big mountain pow board. A lot of people are really going to enjoy this for that. If you ride this near reference, you can ride this switch very well. You can hit a big kicker. So overall, I think the Flagship Pro is a nice change up from the Ultra Flagship. It feels like it's made for pros, where the Ultra felt like it was made for people who wanted a lighter, poppier ride. It's a very versatile, well-built ride with a fast base, good grip, good directional float, great big mountain performance. It's very forgiving. I'd like to see a narrower stance. I wish they could set the front back a little bit more. I wouldn't mind a little more camber, especially closer to the tail. But overall, I personally like this. So if you're somebody who likes that ultra light, ultra poppy thing, this Pro model isn't going to be for you. But if you've always wanted something more powerful, more stiff, more aggressive than the regular Flagship, this Pro is for you.